It's time for the masks to completely come off. The thing is, until you can erase 3 Februaries, shut up.
Where sports is the base, life and fun are the results. This is the Brian Snow Show.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Brian Snow Show. Now, I will say out loud, I am in the process of putting this show onto a few networks that said they were interested in my programming, Zebo TV being one of them. However, in staying true with what I feel, there will be some episodes where language, i.e. cuss words, are not a barrier. And y'all seem to enjoy those. This is going to be one of them. I titled the show Masks Off because my guest has that philosophy. And it's taken me 3 years. The battle with cancer, the battle with the toe amputation, kidney failure, people that double-crossed me, people that triple-crossed me, and I still let them into my life. Until recently, which leads me to advertise tomorrow after Snowman in the Morning, there's going to be another purge. And so many people that tuned into part 1 in 2016 decided to do another one. Today, my guest goes by a simple 2-word philosophy that I have since readopted. Masks off. Please help me welcome Kim Gross. And she joins me right now. Hello, my dear. How are you?
Hey, Brian. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
We talked in pre-show really quick when we all have a point where we scramble to get things done. And you said, I went and looked at my email and I didn't see anything. And I was looking for a Zoom link. And I told you I used Zoom once upon a time until it shit out on me. To use my granddaughter's words, it went kablooey. I got tired of things in my life, and I know you can speak to this, of things and people going kablooey. And I finally said, and I said it today, as a matter of fact, start of the week, started my morning show at 8 a.m. to give me some kind of structure, wife's suggestion. I said, fuck it. I simply said, fuck it. And we talked before we came on, and I told you, language barrier off. And I'm telling my audience there are going to be episodes that are going to be web only because I am working hard to sell the show and put it on different networks. This ain't one of those episodes.
I hear you. So one of the things that I will tell you is that, so as my show is called Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists, I have worn a perfection mask for a very, very long time. And 2 things, let me just tell you this, 2 things that do not coincide with a perfection mask that I do is, one is I swear. I love to say fuck. I say fuck all the time. It just feels good when I say it.
Doesn't it?
It feels good. And then the second thing is that people would not, well, there's actually a third. The second thing that people don't expect from me as a 56-year-old white woman is that I love rap. My kids and I went to see Lil Baby last year. He's one of my favorites. I've met Migos, and people are like, that just doesn't go with your persona of being a perfectionist. Number 2. The third thing that I do as a 56-year-old woman is I have been boxing for 6 years. I love to box. So cool. I blew all that out of the water. There we go, Brian.
Listen, I've blown so many things out of the water. It's not even funny. And it all started when I heard my first Chicago Bulls game from the announcer that led me to believe that I can have a play-by-play career, which is now in its 29th season, the late, great Jim Durham. I have had one of my idols in the business and who has become a very dear friend on the show recently in Wayne Larrivee, the legendary voice of Once Upon a Time the Bears and now the Green Bay Packers. I have had him on. One of my best friends in the business and in life, Bill Schoenig, the voice of the Spurs. He's been on. And my mother, bless her heart and may she rest in paradise, for many years asked me, why don't you have any black announcers as your favorites? She asked me this question in 1987 when I was really getting into my announcing, and my dad was encouraging me to get into it. This is when my mom intercepted me with the question of, why don't you have any black announcers that's your favorite? Mom, it's pretty simple. Point went out to me.
Yeah, what'd she say when you said that?
She walked out of my room and never came back.
Well, today is a different story a little bit, right?
Kinda.
Kind of.
I follow people who get the job done. I don't care about the color. I love Gus Johnson. I love Gus Johnson. I love Greg Gumbel.
What about Stephen A?
I'm kind of...
He just annoys you.
Listen, Stephen A has an incredible work ethic until he opens his mouth. That turns me off. You know what else turned my mother off? The fact that I love classic rock. Because for many years I was a summer baseball announcer calling travel baseball tournaments. And my dad walked by as I was downloading music and gave me a simple lesson. You play to your audience. Well, I went to the park the very first time when I had a computer and there was nothing but white people there. Didn't frighten me. Didn't concern me, didn't even faze me.
Yeah.
I broke out every classic rock tune along with rap tunes I can think of. I broke them all out. Now, you know, this frightened my mother to death. She hears me with this headset on my head, banging Quiet Riot in my ears. And she says, why are you, and you know the face is wrinkled, just like what you went through, that you love rap and everything.
Yes.
My mother's face wrinkled, the question marks were above her head, and she worried the daylights out of herself and goes, why are you playing that? Mom, look at my audience. It took her 2 years to understand that.
Yeah, point taken. I hear you.
And to borrow from you, my wife and I did one of those quizzes you find in magazines and now online magazines. The first question my wife read to me, what is a word that your mate uses a lot? Oh, that's easy. Fuck. In every form thereof. I said that and my wife fell out laughing.
Yeah.
And she and Jody turned and looked at me and she says, you think you know me, honey? How many minutes a day do you spend using the word fuck? And she says, how many hours are in a day? And I fell out laughing again.
Honestly, I know.
Because like I said, we talked before the show and you said, are you worried about the land? I said, dear, my favorite comedian is George Carlin.
Yeah.
My other favorite comedian is Richard Pryor.
Oh my goodness.
If that tells you anything.
Oh yes, I remember Richard Pryor.
And I love Rich. Look, I love them both. Those are my two favorites. You know, some people will throw Red Fox at me. I hadn't heard enough of his comedy at the time. Eddie Murphy was thrown at me. I throw him on the list, but I also throw Red Fox on the list, even though I haven't heard much of his old comedy. George Carlin got me hooked because of one skit he did when he talked about flying on an airplane, and the phrase that got me to love him forever: get on the plane. Get on the plane, get on the plane. Fuck you, I'm getting in the plane. Every time my parents went to Las Vegas on vacation, I would say that to them and I'd have them both cracking up.
Yeah.
I'd have them both cracking up. And on a trip to Nebraska, my wife and I went on a business trip together in 2019. We're getting ready to check in, and my wife put her arms around me and said, "Get on the plane, get on the plane." I melted. I melted.
Uh, you and your wife really get each other. I love that.
Mhm.
You really do. That's
I'm
awesome.
every day we learn something about each other, and we've been together 6 years.
Wow, that's incredible.
We've been together
Congrats.
6 years, and there's always something that she learns about me or I her. And that's what people need to learn in life. When someone comes into your life, it's a learning curve and it's a learning process all the time.
Yeah.
Like I said, which is part of the reason why I titled the show the way that I did, because of what you said, masks off. And we'll get to
Yeah.
that here in a moment, because it's time to take the masks off, isn't it?
Well, that's the problem though, right? Because what if you spend 10, 20, 30 plus years with your partner and the
Mm-hmm.
whole entire time you're wearing a freaking mask?
Been
And
there.
they,
My
right? And
first.
they never get to know the true you, like who you
Exactly.
really are, because you learned at some point to say what you think,
Mm-hmm.
what you feel,
Yep.
and what you believe is
Correct.
not okay, because that other person will shut you down,
Yep.
cut you down,
Mm-hmm.
dismiss you,
Keep going.
and discount you
Yep.
and tell you that you are full of shit. And so
All
then you're
the
like,
time.
oh, okay. And then you start to hide and cover who you are, and you wear the mask, and then you
Mhm.
start saying what you think they want you to say. You
Yep.
start behaving differently,
Yep.
and they don't know who you are. And it doesn't mean not just with your partners or your close relationships, but in your work life, in
Yep.
your whoever you're with out there. If you're wearing a mask, you are cutting off from your true self. You're not being your true self.
Absolutely, you are. And what's worse, you wind up wearing the mask more than your partner does. Because for me, it came true in 2015 when I was in a very abusive relationship. When I say very abusive, it was emotional, it was physical, it was mental. And the mental part really fucked me up for 2.5 years.
Yep.
It fucked me up for 2.5 years, because every time I think I'm ready to step out of that shell,
Yeah.
I start thinking, what are they going to think? What is he going to think? What is she going to think? And you just look around and you get overwhelmed, and all of a sudden you're back in that shell again.
Yeah. 100%. And that is a shitty way to live your life, when you are acquiescing to the person who's supposed to love you, to the
Mhm.
person who you care about, who spends so much time, and you're acquiescing just to keep the peace, just to keep that person happy, just because you're seeking approval and
Mhm.
validation to
Mhm.
say, love me, see me. Am I okay? Am I enough? Am I good enough for you? Fuck
Mhm.
that, right?
Eh.
Take the mask off and tell yourself that you matter. Tell yourself that you are worthy. You don't need another person to tell you that. You are inherently good just because you were freaking born,
Mhm.
right? Like when we were babies and toddlers and we had puke all over us, or we had like mashed carrots all over our faces, we didn't care what people were thinking or saying about us. We were just being.
Yep.
We were just being ourselves.
Mhm.
And then shit changes along the way, you know,
Oh boy, does it ever.
right?
Oh boy.
And that's when we start to
Oh boy.
protect ourselves and cover up.
Yep. I go back to that relationship I was in 2015, and I've shared many a story, but here's one that crystallized where I was, and I didn't realize it. When you're in that kind of relationship, be it a relationship with somebody you're supposed to love or somebody that's supposed to be your friend, And I was going through that twice over with a person I was living with and the person I was trying to share my life with.
Yeah.
Here's what happened. I was living up in Michigan City, Indiana. Actually, I was living in Glenview, Illinois. Check that. I was living in Glenview, Illinois. And I would drive to LaPorte, Indiana every day to get the hell away from the roommates. And then when I get to LaPorte, Indiana, I wanted to drive the hell back to get the hell away from the bitch I was seeing. When you're in that kind of closed quarters,
Yeah.
it fucks with you. Because on one hand, you have the roommate who you're happy that he's putting a roof over your head because you were homeless at the time, 2014. And then on the other hand, you got the woman that's trying to ruin you. And you don't realize it. I went to Maryville to do a game. And I was praying the entire time that she doesn't see my car. Unfortunately, at the time, because I was dealing with a bad knee, I had to park close to the stadium so I can get upstairs because there was no elevator available to me at Demery Stadium. So I get upstairs. I'm in the booth. It's air conditioned. Thank the Lord for that. And I start shaking. My spider senses went completely off. And they just kept telling me, she's here. She's here. And I kept telling myself, look, shut up. She's not here. And they just kept saying, she's here. Watch out. She's here. Lo and behold, before I push the button for my pregame show, I see her walking up the stairs. And I thank the Lord that the windows were tinted, so she could not see me. But I saw her sit under the broadcast booth. And all of my friends there saw her come in, and each one of them gave me reassurance. Look, we'll help you get the hell out of here when the game ends. I'm like, okay, thank you all. Thank you guys so much. And sure enough, I needed every one of their aids because she tried to come into the booth on the main door. I had to go through the announcer's door to get the hell out of Dodge. I'm flying back to Glenview, praying my roommate's asleep so I can come in with no problem. And I got 2 phone calls. The first phone call said, I miss you. I love you. I want to see you. I hope you can come see me tomorrow. 20 minutes later, I get another phone call. It said, quote, I don't know what you're doing or who you're doing it with, but I hope you're enjoying yourself. What the fuck is that?
And that was from the same person.
From the same person. From the same damn person.
You know what that is? What you just described, that whole experience of being inside that studio, that's some trauma. That was a trauma response.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that now.
And
I know that now.
Right. So here's the thing. Think about how many people have a similar story or have experienced that same kind of unease or fear with the people in their lives. And they just are so afraid to just be themselves. And living like that causes so much anxiety, so much depression. It's no wonder that we are a society that is in debt, overweight, gamble, whatever substitution you want to call it, whatever technique you use to numb.
Yep.
It's because you can't be you.
Exactly.
And look at why. Look at the trauma that people go through, what you just described. That is a trauma-induced situation. And of course, we're going to be like, okay, I can't just be me. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of Dodge.
Yes. I got to get the fuck out of there.
Yes.
It's like George Carlin said, I can deal with people in short bursts. But he jokingly said, anytime it gets around minute and a half, I got to get the fuck out of there. For me, dealing with Ms. Dials, I will not reveal her first name. In dealing with Ms. Dials, it was literally that.
Yeah.
I can only deal with her at the time for a minute and a half. And like when that minute and a half passes, I got to get the fuck out of Dodge and fast.
Yep. Yeah. So here's the thing. My message is this, is that obviously it's about masks off. It's a mission to help people to take off their masks, because here's the thing. At the end of the day, when we get to the end of our lives, the thing that I don't want for myself or for other people is to look back with regret and say, God, I just wish I could have been myself.
Yes.
Why couldn't I show up as my true self? No one got to know who I really am. No one got to know what was in my heart, because I
Right.
was too afraid to share myself with others and with the world.
Why do you
That's
think that is? Why is it so hard?
fear.
Hmm.
At the root of it, it is fear of rejection, because we're so wired for connection and for belonging that
Right.
if we fear that if you showed up as your true self with your former, right, and you were just you, and she wasn't accepting you the way you were, then you have to pretend to be someone who you're not. We're so afraid of being rejected and abandoned
Right.
that we hide ourselves, we hide who we are, and we go through this our whole lives, many of us,
Yeah.
until like you're woken up and like, okay, nope, no longer. And
Then
you get to the
you get to a point where you finally say no more.
no more. And you're like, okay, either I have to heal my shit from the past, or I have to figure out a different way to show up in the world so that you can be so unshakable at the
Yeah.
core that no matter what anyone says to you, that you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you matter and you're worthy. Right? I go back to, I love the Teddy Roosevelt quote, "The man in the arena." I can't recite the whole entire thing, but I just know it's about not allowing the critic to matter, right? It's not the critic who matters, it's the man in the arena. When
Yeah.
you come from that that place of strength, of knowing that no matter what, you're good, you're worthy, you're lovable, you matter, it doesn't matter. Like, then there's such freedom, like so much
There is.
freedom, so much
There sure
peace
is.
in that. So that's what I want for people.
Mhm.
And to answer your question, why people don't have it and won't do it, is at the root of it, it's fear. They would rather stay attached to someone who's abusive. They would rather stay attached to someone who is mean, or whatever the case is, just to know, hey, I got somebody in my life. Even if
Yeah.
it's the unhealthiest relationship, I have somebody. They would
Right.
rather have that than to be alone and be
Yeah.
free.
That's what I went through with Ms. Dials until Christmas of 2015, when I got my apartment and I finally said, fuck you and everything you stand for. And what really broke that was she wound up dating my best friend of 20 years. And she got that motherfucker to call me while I was on the air and confirm it. I never thought I'd drive so fast from La Porte to Chicago. After she led me there and told me we're going to work things out. And I'm thinking, okay, we turned the corner. I was wrong, and I'm glad I was wrong. I'm
You
glad
say
I was wrong.
you saved yourself, or she saved you by doing that.
She revealed her true self by doing that. Here's another question that I'd love to ask you. Why does it happen? Why is it, let me rephrase. Why is it that when men break free, they're immediately pulled back in? When they find that assurance of themselves, saying, fuck you, this is who I'm going to be, then society goes to work and pulls them back in. Am I off in saying that?
I don't even know if it's like even just men either. I think it's women as well. I think
Right.
even like in relationships, like if a woman does break free momentarily from an unhealthy or abusive relationship, and then months later she's back with that same person, like why? Right? You were free. Why did you go back? Well, at the end of the day, when you come from true freedom, right? True freedom. You know your true self.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I go back to what I said. There's no one out there, no thing, no person that can tear you down or pull you back. It goes to the quote again, the man in the arena. If you're
Yes.
that strong from within, if
Mm-hmm.
someone then starts to manipulate you, someone starts to pull you back in, hey, tries to knock you down here, knock you down here.
Mm-hmm.
If you're that strong within yourself, you can't get pulled back in.
You have a book coming out on the 15th,
I
Free to
do.
Be. I looked at that title and I smiled. What prompted you to do that project?
So it's my life, it's my journey, it's a memoir. I share and outline in the book how I went from living a life of being in victimhood, living a life of being a perfectionist, being a people pleaser, living according to other people's expectations, low self-esteem, not knowing who I was, to doing a shit ton of work
Yes.
on healing, like a shit ton of work. So when I just answered your question a moment ago, there
Yeah.
was a part of me that said, maybe he's listening to me and saying, fuck that. That shit doesn't make sense. Right? That's what I was
get it.
thinking. You might have been thinking, but
I
here's the thing. I can speak that. I can talk that talk because I walk the walk.
mm-hmm.
Right? And so I know that when I
Mm-hmm.
say that, I'm not just blowing smoke. I'm
Right.
saying it from an authentic place, that I used to be in that place that I used to call like a mental prison, to
Mm-hmm.
now being free. That's
Yes.
the free to be myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm liberated now. It's a pathway to liberation.
Mm-hmm.
And so my book shares all the stories. I mean, it's super vulnerable,
Yeah.
super raw.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's what I had to do. First of all, I had to take off my mask. Again, I had to practice what I preach. I have to walk the walk. If I tell people you need to take off your masks and be your true self, well, I can't certainly hide in my book and write what I think people want to hear
Right.
or read. I had to tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I did. I shared vulnerable stories, and then how I did the work, and then what's possible now and what I live today, every day in my life.
I love it. I have a book of my own that I'm working on, and this is the title that a friend gave me, Diary of a
Oh,
Mad Snowman.
ooh, love that
I have
cover.
voiced the first part of it, and I love the title. I voiced the first part of it. I got a friend that wants to publish it. Matter of fact, I have two offers from companies
Nice.
that want to publish it. I am going to redo the first part and get all of the everything that I've been through. I'm going to get it all out. Is it going to be in a particular order when I revoice it again? No.
Mm.
But when I get it to my publisher, you damn right it's going to be in order, because I'm going to let them put it in order.
Yes.
I'm going to let them put it in order. And some of it for me, it has it's been trust issues for me.
Mm.
Who do I trust with something I have believed in since I was 10 years old, which is Snowman Multimedia, my broadcasting company? Who do I trust with the publishing of Diary of a Mad Snowman? And there are going to be two parts. It's going to be a trilogy. I already have it in my head. I already have it in my head that it's
I
going to be a
hear you.
trilogy.
I hear what you're saying about the trust.
It's
Do you want to hear my response to that?
Bring it.
Okay. I was the same way when I had a ghostwriter
Mm-hmm.
and I had an editor, hybrid publisher. So it's self-published, but she's hybrid, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, I went back and forth. Should I go with this one? Should I go with that one? Like, I didn't know who to pick because I didn't trust myself.
Right.
To make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I started to tap into my intuition, and really just follow the breadcrumbs that were being laid out in front of me, it was obvious. And now that the ghostwriter's done writing and the publisher's done editing and doing all that stuff, I am beyond grateful for who I chose. They were the perfect fit for me. Was it a perfect process? No. At some points with my ghostwriter, he kept telling me, no, it needs to be like this. It needs to be like that. My people-pleasing tendencies were kicking up like no tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
I just so want to say, okay, you're the expert. You're the expert. I must listen to you.
Right.
But I couldn't. I was like, no, I have to do what feels right for me.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say to you or anyone listening about the trust issues, is just to really trust yourself. Tap in, get quiet, get really quiet. And what is your gut telling you? And then just follow those breadcrumbs. Be careful of the shiny carrot, because I saw many shiny carrots. I'm like, oh, let me go with that one.
Oh my goodness, yes. And I've seen many a shining carrot lately. You know,
I bet.
with people that want to sponsor my morning show. And I have come to the conclusion that if they're not going to pay up front, especially given the fact I am 52 years old, I've been disabled because of my battle with cancer, and I need something to help my wife, especially, you know, with financial obligations. And I also want to get some things for myself.
Of course.
It has come down to this, and I said it today on the way home, so we can do our interview. It's come to this. If you can't pay my cost up front, stop talking to me.
Yeah.
I have to do it that way.
And
I
you
have to do it that way.
See, and you know that internally, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that needs to be a number one priority. And so you just stick to that. Can't waver from it. That has to be a priority.
It has to be. It has to be a priority now, because I have done free for so long. I have done discounts for so long. Fuck that. I'm done with doing discounts. Well, give me some time to get this. Give me some time to get that. Time's up, motherfucker. I'm tired. You get to, and I know you've been at this point. You get to a point where you were just plain tired.
Exactly.
I love it. You're just plain tired. If they're not going to pay my cost up front, fuck you. I don't need you stringing me along. I'm not going to help anybody build their business or build their brand that don't want to build mine. I've had so many people pay for sponsorships for like a month, and I asked for a 3-month commitment, and I've learned to ask for a 3-month commitment up front. I've learned to ask for a 3-month commitment. If they're not willing to deal, then neither am I. I'm finished playing the game.
Absolutely.
I'm finished playing their game. Before we get out of here, I close with the immortal words of the late Robert Montgomery Knight. When my time on earth is gone and my activities here are past, I want they bury me upside down and my critics can kiss my ass. And that's how we'll close this one up. Kim Gross joining me, a very unfiltered and wonderful conversation. Thank you, my dear.
Brian.
I must have you back. And I want first dibs on that book, damn it.
October 15th. We're almost there.
October 15th. Look for her book, Free to Be. For anyone that's struggling with some of the things that we've struggled with, being a perfectionist and being on that people-pleasing bandwagon, and you haven't had the time or a way to jump off that sumbitch because the landing was so rocky, man, I'll tell you, I've jumped off that people-pleasing bandwagon many times. I can't give you a number how many times I jumped off that people-pleasing bandwagon. This recent time was the last time. I'm off that people-pleasing bandwagon. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful time. I hope to have you back soon.
Thank you. I hope to be back.
Where sports is the base, life and fun are the results. This is The Brian Snow Show.